we have anonymous speechwriters for like president and all that.
Okay.
How are they protected?
If a bank account is inactive for like 2 years, it goes back to the central bank.
Yeah.
So I guess the government absorbs all those things.
Yes, you know this book called The Animals Farm. The name is George Orwell. And George Orwell never existed.
It never existed.
Yes. And the one who wrote it knew that when this book comes out and my name is mentioned as Bnoskka, they will come and kill me. This is Bnoskka. I'm telling you, welcome to Bnoskka IP Zone, brought to you by Apprise Music Production. And as I always say, it is good to learn something new every day. And today we're going to learn about duration of copyright. Before I do that, I just want you to know that Apprise Music, we're here to publish your works and also to distribute it into all the digital stores that you can have. And it is meant to make sure that you make money. Now, today, as I said, we're going to look at the duration of copyright, but I've got some wonderful guests in the midst. And let me start from my left, then I'll come to my right. Young man, please, what's your name?
My name is Phillip Neewhang. I'm a musical artist, content creator, and I work with Apprise Music.
Okay, and the lady to my right.
Hi guys, my name is Margaret Doe, aka Max, and I'm a musical artist and social media influencer plus content creator.
Yeah, indeed. We influence people. Yeah. As you're even influencing yourself. It's cool. It's cool, right? Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Yeah, so my wonderful audience in the studio too are also here. As we move on, I'll give them the options to also make their contributions and ask their questions and all that. Today, we want to look at duration of copyrights, and specifically we want to look at duration of moral rights, duration of protection for expression of folklore, duration of copyright in sound recording, duration of copyright in audio-visual works, anonymous works, works by bodies of corporate, and then works of individual authors. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share the video. Very, very important. And if you have comments, please do and let us know. Now, so what we say copyright duration, we are trying to look at how long should a copyright last for an author, a rightful owner, of course, not just anybody. So when we say an individual, the law says that an individual who has created anything which is eligible for copyright protection, then it should last you a lifetime. So let's assume Bnoskka now, I am maybe 30 years old and I will live to be 135 years and I create a work today. So for the 135 years, I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to be the only economic right owner unless I license somebody. And if you look at our previous episode 13, you can be able to get what license actually means. So on this episode 14, I'm telling you that if I live to be 135 years and I die, then another 70 years after I am dead and gone, we have to calculate 17 years over my death before the work can now become free. Okay? So let's assume that you are an individual or you are two people. So let's come into joint authorship. Myself and Max, and then Philip. We came together and wrote a book or wrote a song. And then we are all alive. And then one person dies. Now, the ownership now rests on the two surviving artists. Now, until the last person die, okay? So let's say the last person will live maybe 50 years after the two people died. Unless the last person died, then we will start to calculate the 70 years over his death. So that is for the issue of joint authorship, okay? So as long as the surviving author is still alive, we cannot calculate unless that last author. So if, let's say, the song is by a band, and the band has 7 members in the band, and 6 die, and 1 person is still alive, it is still not public domain. It's still not free for everybody. The economic right still rests with that 1 person, unless he dies, and then 70 years after his death, then it becomes free for all to use. Now let's look at body corporate. When we say body corporate, it means that companies which are established by law, if they create anything, on the very first day they make it known publicly. Let's take, for example, a company like MTN or Vodafone or Airtel or Tigo or Telecel or Apprise Music. They create a movie, or they pay somebody to create a music for them or a song for them or whatever. On the day they publish that work, make it known to the general public, then we'll start to count 70 years. That is for body corporate, for a group of a company which is registered by law. And so when they make it known to the public, then on the 70 years, whether the company is still in existence or is not, then the work will not fall under public domain. That is what it means. So let's take, for example, if Disney World created a work in 1931, okay, by extension, it means it has passed the 70 years, right? So it has now fallen in the public domain. Let's say Ghana Films, or Gamma Films, as it used to be called, made some movies in the early 1950s. And then if you calculate 50s to 2024 that we are in now, it means 70 years has passed. And so that work has fallen under public domain. So that is for body corporate. Now, let's look into more details when the work is made by anonymous author, or we don't know who actually makes the work. Now, the law says that works that are anonymous, we don't know the owner. There's no owner to it. There's no specific person that we can link to it as the person who made the work. Now, so the work will now become 70 years on the very first day they publish. But as long as it goes, and then maybe somewhere along the line, we are able to identify that this person created it, then it will revert it back to the individual author. Okay, so this is what the law actually states in section 14 of the Copyright Act. So for anonymous authors, it will be 70 years. But as the person who created is alive, and one way or the other, we happen to know that, the work was created by Bnoskka, then it means until Bnoskka dies and 70 years passes, the work will not be on free to use domain. Now, let's look at the duration of copyrights in audiovisual works. When we look at duration of copyrights in audiovisual works here, we're talking about videos and films, or pictures in motion with sound. Okay, so once that has been created, now here the work is saying that the director of the movie and then the executive producer, the one who put his money into making sure that the work become what it is, then it means on the day they premiere the movie, we start to calculate 70 years for that. But if it is done by one person, the author, then on that 70 years, the author must die, and then after 70 years, then it becomes free to the general public. Now, let me read exactly what the law says in section 15. It says, in the case of an audiovisual work, the right of the authorship is referred as referred to in section 5, which is the economic right, until the expiration of 70 years from the date of the making of the work, where the work is made available to the public during that period, with the consent of the author, until the expiration of the 70 years from the date on which the work was either made or first made available to the public, or first published, whichever date is the later. So on the day that it was made available to the public, or the day that they created the work, or the day that they published it to the work, 70 years for videos and films. Now, on the issue of sound recordings also have the same implications, that it should also expire 70 years after the first year of publication if the sound recording has not been published from the fixation of the sound recording until the expiration of the 70 years after the first year of fixation. So if an individual creates a sound recording, then it will last you your lifetime and 70 years after your death. But if that sound is being created and it is by a company which has created a sound recording, then on the first day that it is published, then it means it has become what? 70 years, then we'll calculate it. Duration of protection of expression of folklore. So for this folklore aspect, the right is vested in the president, as we heard in section 4 of the Act. And it says that the trust, it is held it is entrusted in the president on behalf of the people. But that the right of folklore does not expire. It exists in perpetuity. It means forever and ever. Folklore will never expire. So when you are thinking that, oh, I heard this folk song, oh, let me wait 70 years, it has expired. I'm sorry. It will never expire. Then let's look at the duration of moral right. Duration of moral right of an author, as exists in there, also exists in perpetuity. It means that the person shall be able to enforce the authors during the lifetime of the author and after the author's death. The author's successors, whether or not the economic right vested in the author or not, is still the successors have the title of the author forever and ever. So this is what we mean by duration of copyright law. Now I want to add something brief to it, what we mean by permitted uses of protected works by copyright, so that we can add it to the duration of copyright. When we say a work is permitted use and it is copyright, whether the duration has expired or not, whether the duration of a copyright work has expired or not, for the purposes of education, it does not affect. Anybody can take a book and use it in a classroom, explain it, and let them understand. But it is not that they can make photocopies of it in the classroom and be using just like that. No. If they have to make copies, they have to go to library, and the library will make a list of exactly how many pages they are making photocopies, so that can be able to pay the right to the right owner. Then the next aspect is about making a publication about it by library. Let's assume that a library decide to make a copy of a book and keep it in the library, and they can make a whole complete book and keep it in the library. It is not an infringement. The law says that library can be able to do that. It is not your personal library. It is the state institutions or registered libraries with the Ghana Library Authority, not your home library that you go and make for people's books and you say you are keeping a copy. Library can also make a copy of a video, and keep it in the library. They can make a copy of anything which is by copyright eligible and keep it in the library, okay, for the purposes of archival. And so therefore, when they do that, they are not infringing on the law, whether it has the duration has expired or not. Now, personal usage is also permitted. What we call first sale. A song is being displayed on digital stores, like what Apprise Music does for people. We publish your songs and distribute it to digital stores. Once you go on the digital store and you download the work onto your phone, you can play it in your home and dance with it as many times as you want. You are permitted to do that. Or if you buy the CD, you can play as many times as you want in your home, in your own family. You can do that. But you cannot go out and make copies of it and sell to people, or even make copies and be distributing to people. No. Whether the right has expired or not, you cannot do that unless if the work has fallen under public domain. So that is what we mean by duration of copyright. Public domain basically simply means that all works which have expired their copyright duration. So an individual, he makes a work until he dies and 70 years comes, it will not fall under public domain. Or if an individual publicly declares, then it means the duration has expired. So it falls under the public domain. And if you want to make a public domain work, then all you have to do is to declare openly and put it into writings. And the law says that once you do that, then there's no duration, but the name will exist forever. But the economic right will expire. Automatically, you declare that your work should fall under public domain. And then whatever money that collective management organizations collect from your songs being played at parties and whatever, it is not free for people to just play. There will still be money. But then the law says that all that money that will come out of it should be put into a state fund to be able to take care of copyright activities. And that fund will be managed by the copyright administrator under the Minister of Finance. So this is what the law says. And if we have to talk about copyright duration, this is where I would want to come to the studio and ask for questions and contributions and recommendations. Who want to go first? Let me hear from the lady first.
Okay, so Bnoskka, do we have third-party folklore? As compared to music, we have third-party songs. Do we have the same thing? Does it apply that there are some that you can use without having copyright issues?
Folklore?
Yeah.
No. Folklore, no. But European folklores, yes, you can use them because they have not actually, they have all those things. They really don't have much. We think we have much. So that's how we put all these implications. But I think it's up to the foreigners also to decide what they want to do with their folklore. I have no idea. But as far as I'm concerned, Ghanaian folklore songs are not subject to any third-party agreement. It's basically addressed in the president, and it never expires. It has no duration. It exists forever. Okay. Yes.
I'm sort of curious. The law keeps referencing 70 years, like 70. What really is special about the 70 years?
Okay. All right. So when copyright, implication comes, you know that we've heard that our life on earth is 70, right? So I don't know, maybe if the framers of the law, even right in the Berne Convention, it is there as 70. And the previous copyright law that we had, which was the PNDC law 110, the copyright law of Ghana in 1985, that law had 50 years. But when we have to rectify the Berne Convention, we have to go back and make sure that we make it 70 to agree with the international convention, like I said in some of our previous episodes, the Universal Copyright Convention, the UCC, and the Berne Convention, the ARIPO, and the Europo, which is European Intellectual Property Organization, Asian, and all that. Everybody has agreed that it is 70 because you have children. Those people should enjoy your benefit 70 years after you are gone. You see? So if it's a corporate organization, then they have a 70 years on earth to live. So after 70 years, the work should become public domain. Until then, the duration still holds.
In a follow-up, when you were explaining, you mentioned anonymous.
Yeah.
And anonymous, you mentioned that once a person becomes known, it goes to individual. But then really, what is anonymous? Is it, let's say I publish a book and I'm called Phillip and I use, let's say, Baz as my name. Does that put under anonymous, even though publishers know that the name on that Baz is Phillip? Or is it like you are not known at all? Okay. And if you are not known at all, how do copyright protect?
Okay, so when we say anonymous is that there's a book and the book is available, or there's a movie available and nobody knows who made it. There's no name associated with it. Now, I'll give you a classical example. You know this book called The Animals Farm? The name is George Orwell. And George Orwell never existed.
It never existed?
Yes. There was nobody called George Orwell. The book had a name called George Orwell. But when you trace the history as to who is George Orwell, it cannot be found. Oh, wow. So they actually put that name on it as anonymous. Just a name to represent, because the book was a political book. And whoever that was the owner was wanted. And the one who wrote it knew that when this book comes out and my name is mentioned as Bnoskka, they will come and kill me. So just put any random name and put it on it. And so everybody, who is George Orwell? Everybody knows George Orwell. So it was described as anonymous because we don't know. There's no registration to prove. There's only one person. In fact, when the book was launched, they said that this book is anonymous author by name George Orwell. So once they have declared that it's anonymous, then it means right there, 70 years, they start counting. But let's assume that along the line, everybody got to know that it was Bnoskka who wrote the book. Then I'm alive, so I still enjoy until I die and 70 years comes. That's what it means to your answer.
Okay. So with that, doesn't mean like, okay, there's copyright, so people cannot just publish that book. So who gets the economic rights?
Economic rights rest on the author.
Yes, and it's anonymous.
No. See, a publishing company took this book and they agreed to publish. And the author says, I don't want to be known.
Oh, okay.
The author said, I don't want to be known because this book is going to cause me trouble. So let's just put an anonymous name. George Orwell. It is not me, Bnoskka. My actual name is Benjamin Oduro Arhin. So it is not me. So once it is not me, then if it is found that I am the one that actually made this book, now it has become known, then the right goes back to the individual who waits for he dies and 70 years before it falls into public domain. But if not, then on the day of publication or made known to the public, we start counting 70 years.
Okay.
Yes, Meg.
Bnoskka, so what goes into the idea of, let's say, songwriters, speech writers? You know, we have anonymous speech writers for like president and all that. Okay. How are they protected? Okay. For instance, somebody writes a song for me and the person doesn't want his name to be out there, but it's low-key. What goes into the agreement, the contract between those?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is, I cannot have one specific answer to address all because individuals and their reasons for doing certain things. But what I can say is that the basic principle of agreement is that every agreement should have a starting point and an ending point. You cannot have an agreement which exists forever. Okay? So when that comes in, you can go to court and still argue your case out because it's like I have hanged myself with you forever. Just like marriage. You can divorce whenever you think the marriage is no more sweet or it has broken beyond repair. So it exists also in intellectual property ownership that you think that at this particular work, whoever that has created it would want to say that, okay, I want to have a right with you, but then it should be for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 70 years, whatever. So that is how these things are done. And you must respect the contract so that it doesn't force you to go into a lot of legal issues. I hope the question is answered.
Yeah.
Phillip?
I'm curious for, let's say, an independent artist who sort of registers and doesn't necessarily have a nest of kin.
Yeah. Okay, so if, like, speaking of registration, once you are going through a registration process, the copyright registration will say that you must nominate a nest of kin. So it's like you go and open a bank account. Surely they will ask for a nest of kin. Yeah. If you don't have one, your mother is your nest of kin. Your father is your nest of kin.
Okay, let me rephrase. The nest of kin passes on before you pass on. You're unable to correct.
So we call it who survived who in law. Okay. So once your nest of kin has passed before the testator, like the one who actually owns the will, then you have the right to transfer to somebody else.
Yeah, so my question is, assuming you do not, and then you pass on, and the copyright is being protected 70 years, who gets to have the economic?
I don't know. Yes, of course. I mean, you said you have a testator, the testator is dead, and you are alive. You take no decision to assign it to somebody else, and you die. Once you have an intellectual property, and it is in the form of copyright, make sure that you nominate somebody who will not die before you. Or if well, just like you are asking, how would I know? I would not know.
How do you know who died before?
I don't know.
I think that probably just have to be self-aware and be watching out for what's passing on before you.
Yeah, and you can change your mind. No. No. You are making Grace laugh. Grace, you don't mind him. I think you have something to say. Please, they should give Grace a microphone. She has a question to ask. So, what I'm saying is that make sure that if whoever that you gave your right to has passed on, please give it to somebody else. Okay? And that's how it should work. Yes, in-house questions for me.
Bnoskka,
Yes.
so when you have, transferred the copyright to somebody else and you die, can that person also transfer to another person? Yes. I mean, it was transferred to
It's possible.
it can move on.
It is. Until the 70 years comes. It is. So it's like you have the right now and you're also making a will. It includes those properties. It's just like our normal houses that we have, that it has never been, a house been abandoned, that it has no owner. It never happens. So intellectual property are also properties, just like your house or car or whatever. And you will know that in land law, every land you buy, maybe the first person to buy has 99 years. Maybe you will go and buy and it is left with 15 years, right? So you may have to go to the original owners to be able to extend your years. And that is why you have to pay. Any more questions?
So this one doesn't directly relate to this, but with the mobile money transactions in banks, and sometimes they put like the next of kin there, but after the person is gone, as demised or something, you don't get these banks, mobile money people reaching out to the next of kin. They just keep the money. What happens to the money?
Okay, good. So in intellectual property, it's the same thing as you are describing. But what I will wish is that every content or property owner should notify their next of kins where their assets are.
Then what if the person kills you because you have made him?
No.
Because you have notified the person of your property.
That's a big money. I think
Then put the wrong, exactly. You put the wrong person. Okay? So all that I'm saying is that make sure that people know. I've heard stories, I don't know how far it is or true or not, that some banks have got monies where there are no owners for it. So the banks,
when the people die, they don't notify their next of kins, their managers and all, they keep the money to themselves.
Of course. So
I think I remember something. Like when you go to banks, they'll tell you that if a bank account is inactive for like 2 years, it goes back to the central bank. So I guess the government absorbs all those things.
Yes. If the managers don't find a way to sign the money and cash it to themselves, I think that we have a question, Clement. Oh, okay. All right. So, but before I end the show, today some interesting dressing is happening. I'm wearing Apprise music.
Yeah,
it's not Apprise. Yeah, it's on me here, and I'm just telling you that we need to publish your works. But you can also look at this dress. It's quite interesting. It's also quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the show. This is content creation.
Wait, what is the idea?
Yeah. And then look at this man too. He's wearing very interesting colors. But you can look at the trousers here too. I don't know whether some dogs in the house were taking property interest. They thought that the duration of the cloth has expired, just like copyright. So they decided to divulge it. But it's really interesting up there. So what inspired you to do this? Is it by copyright implications or what?
This is my personal property.
Wow. We thank
And
God.
I can, will it to somebody if they're ready to do
Please, this one. I don't want to be in the competition. Let me sign off. This has been the 14th edition or the session for Bnoskka IP Zone. And it is brought to you by Apprise Music. I've had wonderful guests, Max on my right and Phillip on my left, and wonderful guests in the studio. Make sure you like this video, you subscribe, and you share. Click the subscription link. Do that, okay? Then make sure you share the video to all your friends. if you know these things that we're talking about here and your friends don't know, it means you're not winning. Let us all together work together. And this is Bnoskka. I'm telling you, it's going to be great because Apprise is here for you. Thank you.